Hello there. So today we're going to be talking about the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless, and this is a headphone that I've been using for headset that I've been using for the better part of a month. I was going to do a video on it sooner, but there was another product that came out recently that took all of our collective attention away from this one. But now it is time to talk about this one. So without further ado, let's get going with the review. All right, now just as we get going here, you might have noticed that things look and sound a little bit different. That's because I have just moved, and that has also taken my attention away from doing product reviews, but I am slowly getting things set up here. Hopefully, I'll have everything looking and sounding as I want it to in the next little bit. But that's why you haven't seen me in a while. But that said, today's going to be about the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless headset. And just to be clear, this is the S version, which has a couple of additional features compared to the non-S version. It comes in at around $180 at its MSRP. Regardless, I want to note this has been sent over by HyperX for review, so a big shout out to HyperX for sending it in. Of course, we haven't been paid to say anything in particular about it, and all thoughts and opinions here are my own. I also want to give a quick shout out here to Joe from Gadgetry Tech, who put this one on my radar. He's got a video out about the Cloud 3 wireless, so if you want to learn more information, he's got a deep dive on all the various different buttons and features and functions that it has, because it has a lot. So just like the new Fractal Scape, which I reviewed recently, and the Odyssey Maxwell, there's just a lot going on with this one. I feel like they're all trying to do similar things, and this is very good. So let's start with the build quality, the design, and the comfort. I think this is more comfortable than the Fractal Design Scape, because the clamp force is not as intense. But with that said, the drawback is that you don't really get cup swivel. You kind of just are at the mercy of however much play there is to where the headband piece attaches to the yoke. It's fine for this one, but it's just not quite as good as I would like. But for the rest of the comfort, I think it's pretty good. I have one other little nitpick here, and it's to do with the pads. While they are removable, the default pads that it comes with are a little bit on the springy side. They feel nice, they're comfortable on the side of the head, and I think for folks who are used to gaming headsets, this probably will be fairly familiar. But also, if you look at the pad material here, you can see how these channels can form, and this can actually impact the bass. So I have a very large head, as folks know. When I wear this thing, I'm able to get it to seal reasonably well, and no issues there for me. But I think for people with smaller heads, you may end up finding that you don't get quite as much bass on this one as is intended. But that's a fairly minor gripe, because I actually really like the overall amount of space inside the pad here for the ear. And so it does go fully around the ear, and the ear fits fully inside. Also, compared to the Fractal Scape, the pad material here is a nicer feeling material on the side of the head. So that's good. And also, it's fairly lightweight. It weighs less than the Odyssey Maxwell, and I'll put the weight up on the screen here. Now, one other thing here is that the cup section here does come off. So if you wanted to exchange this with a different looking one, you could do that. I gotta say, this white color, I was kind of hoping it would be more of like an off-white, but this is a very aggressive white. It's totally up to personal taste, whatever folks like for the way it looks, but I noticed that when I'm wearing it, it looks kind of ridiculous. I mean, maybe that's a me thing more than the headset thing, but it's very aggressively white. Not quite as subtle and understated and aesthetically refined as something like the Fractal Scape, which I think looks quite a bit better. Now, obviously you get a detachable microphone, and it does have a microphone inside just by default as well, if you don't want to use this microphone. But this microphone is better for the isolation. I'll give you guys a mic test here in a minute. So if you're playing games and you have a noisy keyboard like I do, and you don't want that to translate into what you're doing, this is the microphone that you're going to want to use. Okay, so this is what the Cloud 3 wireless mic sounds like. And just to be clear, I don't find this to be a very good sounding microphone, but sound quality is not really what these microphones are all about. They are meant more for noise rejection. And so here's me, clacking away on a keyboard. So while I'm talking, it should probably be picking it up a little bit, but it should be doing a better job than if it were, not using this microphone. And this particular model is also the S version. And with the S version, you also get a microphone just in the headset generally without this detachable microphone. So if you're using this with your phone, just, with Bluetooth without this microphone attached to it, you can walk around and take calls and stuff like that, and it will have its own microphone built in. So let me just swap to that right now. Okay, so this is what it sounds like when I am not using the detachable microphone. I am just using the built-in one that is in the headset. Again, it's not going to do as good a job at noise rejection. Let me just do the same little test here with this keyboard, right? So it should pick this up pretty clearly. But again, it's the same thing that applies to all of these headset microphones. They're almost always really bad for their sound quality. That's not what you buy them for. If you do want really good sound quality for the microphone, you're going to want to get something standalone. Now, while I have your guys' attention on this topic, the S version is supposedly very similar for the rest of it compared to the non-S version. I do not have them both here to be able to verify this, but one of the key features with the S version that makes it much better, in my opinion, is the ability to store EQ profiles on the headset using the software. So in my opinion, there are 3 key advantages with the S version. One is that you have Bluetooth connectivity as well. You cannot use them simultaneously, but it's nice that you have that feature as well. Number 2 is that it has this built-in microphone that you're hearing me speak on right now. And number 3 is the massive benefit of being able to store EQ profiles on the headset. So you customize it in the software, which I'll talk about, and then you're able to save that to the headset and then use this just with your phone wherever you want to go. But now let's talk about the sound quality. And this is where this product is actually really, really, really good. For the sound quality, this one is competitive with the Scape, still a step behind the Maxwell. But that doesn't mean that everybody is going to prefer the Maxwell. So let's dive into that next. And I'm going to pull up the graphs here done on the B&K 5128, which is this guy right here. This is it's my friend. He is currently the most advanced headphone measurement system available. And particularly for closed-back headphones and in-ear headphones, this is the guy we want to be using because it has the more accurate acoustic impedance. And I know that as soon as I just said acoustic impedance, the audience retention went absolutely to the bottom. You guys don't know what that is and you don't care. It's very important, but apparently nobody cares. So I should probably stop saying that in these reviews. But I want to keep talking about it. And if you'd like to see more measurements done on Mr. B&K 5128 here, we have a ton of articles published up on headphones.com all about various different headsets, headphones, in-ear headphones. We've just published the recent ones on the Apple AirPods Pro 3, and they are also posted on the forum at forum.headphones.com where other folks are chiming in as well. Okay, back to the video. Let's talk about the sound quality of the Cloud 3 wireless. So you'll notice here that the bass has this kind of weird contour going on in the sub bass. I don't actually worry about that too much because again, this is where you're going to see quite a bit more variation when it's actually being worn on the head. And this is something that may also change over time as pads wear in or as the material kind of softens up. And then you do see a contour in the low mids or upper bass, however you want to define that, around 250 hertz. And while this isn't my favorite way to do bass, I think this works actually really well, again, for this kind of product. You get a really distinct and satisfying sense of sub bass coming through, and it doesn't obscure, it doesn't mask anything going on in the mids. And then there's a little bit of a relaxed character towards the ear gain. This is where the ear amplifies frequencies the most strongly. And this is an area where if there's too much energy here, things can sound shouty. If there's not enough energy here, things can sound muffled and dull. And the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless takes a more conservative, more reserved approach to the sound signature here for that region. And this has 2 consequences. Number 1 is that there's not quite as much of a focus on clarity with this headset compared to something like the Fractal Scape or even the Odyssey Maxwell. This one is a little bit more about having a versatile, non-fatiguing kind of sound signature. So you're going to have an easier time with more intense or upbeat genres of music like rock and metal and that kind of stuff. I think having a little bit of a dip there is totally fine. I like a little bit of a dip there personally for a lot of the music that I listen to. And so this is just, it's almost like this is a safer approach, right? It's going to be a little bit more versatile with a wider range of stuff. Then for the treble, you'll notice that this has a bit of an elevation there starting at around 8 kilohertz, so somewhere between 8 and 10 kilohertz. And this is maybe the only area where things can get a little bit on the spicy side, but it's notably less spicy than what you get on products like the Fractal Scape. So if you are treble sensitive, I would suggest the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless instead of the Scape. I think this does a better job of having that more natural tone and timbre to it, where the Fractal Scape could come across a little bit on the edgy side from time to time. But otherwise, this is a really pleasant sound signature across the board. And then you also get EQ. You get EQ in their Ingenuity app in the software. And it does save to the headset, which is nice. Now, there are a couple of drawbacks to the Ingenuity software, and straight up, it's not as good as what you get with Fractal Scape. Like the Scape has better functionality with their web app, and that's because you get 5 bands of parametric EQ. With this one, you get only fixed bands. Now you get a lot of them, which is great, but they're not parametric. So it lets you customize the sound, but not to the same degree as what you can do with the Fractal Scape. Like with the Scape, you can kind of tweak that to your heart's content. With this one, you are at the mercy of the bands that they give you. And unfortunately, they do not give you the bands that I think would make the most sense to adjust. Like they should have a band at around 3 kilohertz or something like that, or maybe one at around 300 hertz if you want to change the shape of the bass contour. And this is like the most common thing that I see where, companies will give you some sort of EQ application and they'll give you a whole bunch of different bands, but then when you look at the frequency response of the product, you're like, I don't have a slider there for the thing that I need to adjust, which is a shame. But you can do a lot with this. You can tone the treble down a little bit if you find it too zingy, or you can boost up 4 kilohertz, which might help with some of that more relaxed character for the ear gain that it has. Like it's not exactly in the same spot, but if you want a little bit more clarity to come through, a little bit more presence, that's how you would do that. Now, one other thing with Ingenuity is that you do get the surround sound option. I find personally that I have an easier time being accurate just in stereo mode, like without any of the 3D audio stuff going on. This is going to depend a little bit from person to person and what you're used to. Your mileage will vary on that. It is nice that they include that, but I personally don't use it. So that about does it for the things that are most important to me with this headset, but I do want to take a moment to compare this to both the Fractal Scape and the Odyssey Maxwell and kind of go through some of the trade-offs, the pros and cons to each, and where this one kind of slots in for me, because I think they're all very good and they're all very competitive. I just got to say, this is where the innovation's happening with over-ear headphones right now. Like this costs $180. I would take this over most of the high-end closed-back, $1,000 plus audiophile wired headphones. I think the exception there might be something like the E3, but most of the ones up that are super high-end, they're not that competitive, and this really is competitive. The Maxwell's really competitive, and so we're seeing the innovation happen in this space. I remember back when gaming headsets, like you wouldn't even consider them because they were just terrible. And in the last several years, they've gotten exceptionally good. And I don't know if this was because the Maxwell came out and that sort of set the bar for sound quality, that everyone sort of took a look at that and went, okay, we got to be competitive with that. But it's really good for sound quality. So let's go through some of the differences that you can expect among the HyperX Cloud Wireless 3, the Fractal Scape, and the Odyssey Maxwell. Right away, for sound quality, the Maxwell is going to sound the best. It's the most clear sounding. It has the most sense of detail and intensity and presence to it, particularly for the mid-range. It is a little bit more clarity focused than the HyperX Cloud Wireless 3, but it is not as forward there in the 2 to 3 kilohertz band as what you might get with the Scape. And at the same time, the Maxwell also has a more balanced and even keel kind of treble presentation. Like that's the one that is the most neutral. It is the clearest and is also the best sounding. Behind that, I actually think I would lean towards the Cloud 3 Wireless because its treble is handled better. Like the Cloud 3 Wireless is not quite as fatiguing or timbrally compromised in the treble. It sounds more natural, not as spicy up there as what you get with the Scape. However, if you are the kind of person who is going to dive into the EQ settings with parametric EQ, then the Scape might actually be the better choice than the Cloud 3 Wireless because it has fully parametric EQ. And so you can basically turn the Scape into whatever you want. And they did such a great job with the software there where they made it so that sharing EQ profiles is kind of like part of it, and switching different EQ profiles on the fly on the headset with that one, which is really cool. And this doesn't have that same kind of functionality to it, right? It's just that the default sound signature for this one, while they're both V-shaped, this one's slightly less V-shaped, particularly in the treble, and it is not quite as intense, not quite as aggressive, not quite as sharp. Now, when it comes to comfort, for me personally, as a large-headed fellow, I find the HyperX Cloud 3 Wireless to be the most comfortable because it has the least amount of clamp force. But if you have a more regular-sized head or smaller head, I actually think the Scape might be better there because the way that kind of has a little bit of cup swivel built into the yoke system and the mechanism for where it attaches to the headband, that might be a little bit more flexible for you if that's something that you're really bothered by. But I still think that the Cloud 3 Wireless will probably be more comfortable for most people. The Maxwell is also very comfortable for how it sits on the side of the head and the headband and everything, but keep in mind that it is heavier. So for longer sessions, I would lean towards either of these other two. When it comes to things like the connectivity, I actually found that All three of them were very good. So with all three of them, it would be possible for me to listen to music or whatever while in a different room. But I found the Cloud 3 wireless to be the weakest. Now, as far as the microphone quality is concerned, I think all three of them do not have good sounding microphones. I think they sound pretty bad for all of them, and I would never personally use them. But all three of them are indexing more for noise isolation from the microphone, so from your ambient sounds around you, somebody's yelling at you from the other room. So for that, they are all very good. I would say comfortably in last place is the microphone on the Fractal Scape, and then it's a bit of a toss-up between the Cloud 3 wireless and the Odyssey Maxwell. But as far as clarity is concerned and like your intelligibility, I actually think, again, I would give the edge to the Cloud 3 wireless. And then lastly, as far as the software integration is concerned, number one there for me by far is, again, the Fractal Scape, then followed by the Odyssey Maxwell, and then the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless. But that's not to say that this is bad. You do get customizability. You do get the surround sound option if you want it. So there are a lot of features here that are still good. It's just that for the things that matter the most to me, neither the Maxwell or the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless are as good as what you get with the Scapes. And then also to consider is that with Escape, you get the docking station, which is pretty cool. Personally, I don't need it, but it does charge the headphone when you use it, so that is it's a nice feature. As far as like the charging of this, it's quick enough, and I'm able to get through full day's use no problem without charging it. So I think for all three of them, they're very competitive there. Now, one other thing to consider with these types of headsets is how well they isolate, so how good the sound attenuation is for sounds that are going on around you. And the Cloud 3 wireless is unfortunately not amazing. It's fine. It's better than the Fractal Scape, which I found to be not great in that regard. More sound could leak in just based on the nature of that design. With this one, it's a little bit more conventional and sound doesn't come in as easily. But again, it has a slightly looser clamp force, and the nature of the pads being maybe not quite as compliant as what you get on the Odyssey Maxwell make it less good for attenuation, passive attenuation compared to the Odyssey Maxwell. I think for sound quality, when you're comparing this at $180 to the Fractal Scape, it's going to come down to a choice between detail and clarity with Escape versus versatility and timbre and natural tone with the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless. Personally, again, without doing any kind of customization or EQ, I prefer the way that the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless sounds. And again, especially for certain types of music like rock and metal, I think they did a really good job with the tuning of this one. And I think it's better than the vast majority of wired headphones that you can get at any price. I think with a tuning like this, you're really competing with products like the FIO FT1 non-pro, right? You're competing with stuff like the AKG K371. I think it's in that realm, and that's very, very good. It's not maybe quite as, let's say, audiophile in terms of the sort of subjective qualities that people look for with these products, but it is very good. And as far as its performance in games is concerned, this is also going to be exceptional. The thing to consider there is if you have a certain kind of priority for, say, elevating the footstep sounds for whatever game you're playing, you may have an easier time creating that sound profile with something like the Fractal Scape. And even the Maxwell has a footsteps preset in it. So you'd have to manually figure out how to get that with the fixed bands that you get on the HyperX. And at least in my opinion, the real benefit to this product is just how damn good it sounds by default as a wireless 2.4 gigahertz product, right? With it being closed back, being able to use this in Bluetooth mode just with my phone, walking around the house, going outside, whatever. The fact that we have sound quality that's this good in this type of form factor for this use case is a very good thing. So that is all I have to say about the HyperX Cloud 3 wireless. I am shocked at how good this is as just a wireless closed back product. Yes, it has a microphone. Yes, it's a headset. Yes, it has some gaming features. But even if you were to use none of those, this would still be a very good product to purchase. My only real complaint here is I wish that there was a little bit of cup swivel, like the ergonomics could still be a bit better here, and that the pad material was a little bit better. So I want to see a premium version of this, right? And I just have to rant again, like it used to be that you would get proper wired audiophile headphones to level up your audio experience and not bother with the crappy sound quality you got from gaming headsets. That is no longer the case because even the more inexpensive ones like these are getting extremely good. And it's to the point where they're just better now. Like it's wireless and it sounds better. So I would love to see the audiophile world catch up, and maybe it can. Okay, as usual, if you'd like to see more of the measurements that we do, that'll be on forum.headphones.com. But also, if you want to chat with me or other like-minded audio folks, you can do so in a Discord, also linked below. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.